Hi, my name is Yonda Thomas, and you are watching the Permanent Rain Press.
Hi everyone, it's Chloe with the Permanent Rain Press. Today I am so happy to be joined by Yonda Thomas. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And how are you?
I'm doing good, thanks for asking. And I'm so excited to chat with you about your work in season two of One Piece on Netflix. But before we get into the exciting new project, what can you share about your background in the arts and what sparked that passion in you to pursue this field as a career after pivoting from politics and public administration?
Okay, you know about that. Of course, you know about that. For me, I got, without rambling on, um, I've always loved acting. Well, not always. I think I got introduced to acting when I was 13, via school play Wizard of Oz. It was. And since then, I've always been in love with the performing arts. I did public speaking, and of course, high school plays. But, coming from a household where my mom was more of a, I don't know, she wanted something more with some structure, something she understood. And I don't think she quite understood what I meant when I said I'm going to go study drama and arts. And she was like, no, that's great that you want to do that, but you're not doing that with my money. So you need to figure out something that's going to be, more structured and something that she could envision. And that's how I got into politics. And fast forward a couple of years later, um, um, my brother actually says to me, hey, there's this talent search show. It's like Idols, but for actors. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not gonna go into national television and have people laugh at me for trying to act. I did that in high school. I'm not that good at it. I'm not gonna go out on national television and try to do that. Uh, Long story short, I go with him as moral support. We stand in the queue for hours trying to get this audition. And finally we make it into the room. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it on a whim. I'm just like, I've been standing here all day with you. I'm just gonna go in and see what happens. And I get picked and with 10 other guys. And well, I guess the rest is history. And that's where I met my agent, Muneen Lee from MLA, and she got me in touch with Dorothy Angold, who's a coach, and she put me into a part as part of an ensemble, theater ensemble, so I could learn how to be an actor and what it means to be an actor besides just the talent and the skills that she could give me. She wanted me to learn how to be part of an ensemble of actors, what it means to be a part of a team, and what it means to be part of something, building something with people that you care about and that care about what they do. And so that's a quick story of how I got into the industry. Um, it was definitely after getting the audition and getting in, it was not a tough ride. Um, because most of the time, I felt like I was in rooms I was not supposed to be in, with people that were professed in the arts, and I was the guy with a coach and community ensemble. So yeah.
First of all, I hope that your brother doesn't hold that against you for kind of maybe taking the part that he initially wanted to go out for. Hopefully not.
I mean, in the beginning, when I got the ticket, it was like this almost like Willy Wonka type of situation where they give you a ticket. And I came out with a ticket and he didn't get one, because it was like this huge casting for this talent show. And so I came out with a ticket. I was like, oh, they gave me a ticket. And he was like, no, they didn't give me one. I was like, oh, no. But he was like, give me your ticket. Let me take it. He didn't want to come here. And but no, but immediately after that, he was like, "Dude, this is great. This could mean something for you. Come. I'll support you all the way." And we used to do these live shows on Saturdays, and he was there at every live show, giving me advice, trying to help me along with, no, this is what you should do. And so yeah, he was very supportive, very supportive.
It's so nice to have that familial support, and it seems like you've been with the same team for a number of years as well. So there's that, stability and constant in your career. What artists and projects are you inspired by and drawn towards?
Woo. Initially, when I started, I looked at a lot of South African artists, and the people that sounded like me and looked like me. I think so. A lot of South African films, a lot of South African television, Rentokwana, Ken Gampo, are some of the names that were very famous in South Africa. And as I grew in the industry and I started consuming various other like forms of I think I don't know, what do you call it, of art and films, and I started looking at other people. Like I mean, Munir very early on introduced me to like old American films and French films. I remember watching Doberman. I was like, I don't like this film. And Moon was like, no, you need to understand film, not just from an actor's perspective, but all from a filmmaker's perspective, which has now helped me very much. Like later on in my career, I realized how important that was. Sidney Poitier was also a favorite of hers. And a lot of books. She made me read a lot of books. Like people like Jack London. It's like so a lot. Who do I draw from and what kind of stuff do I like? Look, I wouldn't say I like old movies, but I think there's a lot to learn from them in terms of um, filmmaking. And I've always loved watching people than watching the actual films. It's only now that I start watching films for filmmaking. So early on, I started watching people that I consider to be leading men. And like Denzel Washington, of course, so those kind of performances are things that I looked at. And I think in the beginning, I was also very interested in like people who were character actors. I remember watching Godfather, Marlon Brando, and I wonder. Like I mean, he's a leading man. I was like, I wonder if you can be a leading man and a character actor at the same time. Because for me, there's always been two different things without rambling on too much. So for me, yeah, I'd say a lot of the time I looked at people that looked like me, and the people that looked at me at the time were a lot of South African actors. And as I grew, I started looking outside the continent as well, especially to the West. There's a lot of examples there of how it's supposed to be done and what you're supposed to be and what it's supposed to look like. I mean, not just Denzel Washington and Sidney Poitier. I mean, I looked at Al Pacino. I loved Al Pacino's work. There's a lot of films where I watched and I was like, I really like this guy. Robert Downey Jr. early on. So I looked at a lot of actors coming up because I really didn't know what it meant to be a leading man, but I knew I wanted it, but I don't think I knew how to do it. And so I started looking at a lot of actors. So I looked at a lot of actors.
I love to hear that you were, inspired by both South African culture and media, but like you mentioned, you had exposure to Western and American content and movies as well. You referenced The Godfather. I know you also like Gladiator and Braveheart. So there's like this kind of like epic fantasy world behind that as well. So did you find
Yeah,
yourself drawn towards those movies from both the acting, but also the storytelling and filmmaking lenses, you kind of got into that world as well.
yeah. So like I said, like, geez, yeah, love Gladiator, love Braveheart, Apocalypto, like a lot of Mel Gibson work, I guess. Early on, like and when he became a director, I kind of felt like, yo, this is the kind of work I want to do. And I mean, like I watched stuff like Lord of the Rings, big nerd, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars. So when I started watching film, for the sake of films, like I want to watch films and not watching them for performances, or not trying to follow a certain performance. When I got into the industry, that became a very big part of what that would look like, and I found myself drawn to a lot of like sci-fi and fantasy, more of that kind of work. And I really found myself enjoying that even more than I did all the I'll call it real grounded type of films. I remember thinking to myself, it must take a lot of doing to create something like the world building, for instance, in Lord of the Rings. Like, for me, that was just mind blowing that, you can develop something and develop a language and a place where it feels real and it's tangible and it's grounded. And for me, that was very fascinating. And so I think watching those kind of films was great. And also, I'm a big historical buff. Well, not buff. I'm nerd. Not really history. Like South African history. I studied South African history at school, and so I got quite taken, I think, by South African history, and then we did a little bit of Greek mythology, and that kind of like also became a thing for me for a while. And when Gladiator came out, I think I was still in high school. And when I got to varsity and I started politics and did South African history and I got deeper into Greek mythology, I watched it again and it with a different eye. So I think I watched like Gladiator specifically in three different phases. I watched it as a layman who knew nothing about film or nothing about acting. And I watched it as just a film that was great, and I was like, oh, I really enjoyed that, but I didn't quite understood why I enjoyed it, but I really liked it. And then once I found out about history and found out in like Rome and the Roman Empire, and I learned more about that, and I learned a lot about Greek mythology. I mean, Gladiator, Troy, those, yeah, love those films. And once I started learning about all of that, for me, the films look different. Like, for instance, if we use Gladiator as an example, it looked very different. And once I got into acting, looking at Russell Crowe, his performance, it looked very different from when I watched it. And then I watched it from a storytelling perspective and the film, and that also felt very different. And so every time I've watched these films, and I go back to old films that I've watched before, and every time I've watched them, I've learned something new, not only about the film, but also I feel like the film has informed something with me. Hope I'm not random. You know, could talk about this for days. Um, but I've learned something different about myself and something different about the film, and I've noticed different things in the performances and how the camera works and the camera movement and how that works. And so for me, it's yeah. Um, I've as the time has went on, I've gravitated towards more like your fantasy, sci-fi, more like historical type of film. Um, when I say historical, I'm talking about films like like The Godfather, um, where it's like oh, this is what it used to be. The mafia used to be like this. Also boxing and sports movies like Raging Bull. You know, oh, this is what boxing used to be back in the day, or Cinderella Man, or so that kind of like period piece type of films.
It's so nice to watch films multiple times and grow a new appreciation for them, as you mentioned. And a lot of them are so powerful in their own ways. Speaking about the filmmaking side, you are a co-founder of New Vessels Productions. So tell me about this new venture, your goals, and focus on South African storytelling.
Thank you so much for asking about our new vessels. It's me and my partner Sidwell Diamond. I've always been. I love storytelling. I've always loved storytelling. I grew up with my grandmother, my three aunts, and my mom. I was the only boy in the house, and my grandmother loved telling stories. My grandmother is like 92 years old now, and she would always tell us stories of like old stories about Nungause and the cattle killing, the War of the Axe that happened in the Eastern Cape, the 100-Year War with the 16 frontier wars, I think. So all that kind of stuff, and I grew up listening to this kind of stories, and I used to go to school and tell my friends this kind of stories. And so for a very long time, when I got into acting, I was like, this is what I'm going to focus on, and I'm only just going to focus on this, trying to figure out what acting is. But deep down inside, there's always been this feeling that I had that I want to tell stories, not just participate in it, not just be part of a story, but I want to narrate the stories. Uh, and for a long time, it's just nagged me. And so I started writing. I started writing maybe 10 years into the industry. I was like, can I write? I mean, I've read enough scripts, I think. So I tried writing something, and I showed it to my agent, Muneen, and she was like, it's horrible. But she said, that's the beauty of it. Like the more you do it, the better you get at it. And I think now I was like, I'm still figuring out acting, but I also want to start telling stories, not just being a part of them, telling a specific story about man. I want to narrate a story to an audience, and it's been a part of me, I think, as Yonda that I've really enjoyed doing. So when it was time, when I felt like the time aligned, I was like, I think it's time for me to invest in South African storytelling and see what that looks like. Um, and also, I'm quite inspired. Like for instance, like I've watched a lot of like foreign films, um, where I'm like, this is such an authentic story, wherever it may be, to Japan, to China, to France. I'm like, this is such an authentic story to that place, and but it still resonates with the world. And I think for the longest time, I've always been like, how do I, if I do tell stories and African stories, how do I present them to the world? And how would I have to tailor make them to be palatable for the rest of the world, not just the African continent? And you watch something like Squid Games, and you're like, this is just like nothing I could have thought of, and it's authentic to that region, but it resonates so much with the rest of the world. And so um, I went back to my grandmother, and I was like, the stories you used to tell me, I love those stories. They're such fascinating stories. I mean, she told us stories about giants, and there's something we call Tigoloshe, and it's like a small mythical creature who torments people in the night. And I was like, that's a great horror story. There's a story I think is called Dogs of Fear, about a boy who herds sheep and ends up fighting with like hyenas. And so there's a lot of South African stories that I really enjoy, and I want to take those stories to the world, and I want to introduce the world or reintroduce Africa to the world in terms of that kind of storytelling, specifically South Africa. And so for me, that is what New Vessels is. And what inevitably came down to the name was that we can't put new wine in old vessels, so we got to move away from telling stories, you know, in the way we used to tell stories. Still stories, but we have to find new vessels to put our stories in, and ship them out to the world, and tell the world about it. So new vessels was quite fitting in terms of us trying to not put old wine in new casks, or new vessels. And so for me and my partner were like, we have to be the new vessels that take our stories to the world, and in a way that is authentic to us, but also resonates with the rest of the world.
I love the messaging behind the name and the symbolism there. And you are noted as an executive producer, actor, scriptwriter, and director. So clearly wearing a lot of different hats, and I'm sure your creative partner is as well. So I look forward to what's upcoming. I know it's still relatively new, but hopefully you have projects or you're writing scripts constantly, maybe hoping to develop those further at some point.
Yeah, well, we actually shot our first short film, independent short film, which was for me, being being an actor is like being on the other side of the curtain. And when you go to like behind the curtain and you have to produce something is so different. Right. This for me, I knew there was going to be a certain level of responsibility, and it's always for me. I think I've always thought of producers as people that you're the guy that gets the money to make the film. But so much of it, if not all of it, if not most of it, is about just getting the right people together, bringing the right people together, and trying to foster some kind of synergy and work chemistry that delivers the kind of product you want, just beyond the funds. And so I'm learning a lot of new things. And I think the short film that we did was almost like a stress tester, to see if I do have the temperament for it. And 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 I really enjoyed it. I think I really enjoyed the responsibility, and I really enjoyed having um creative sort of freedom that comes with it in learning, also applying the skills and things that I've seen, and your vision for how the camera moves, and as a director how the camera moves and how you tell stories, like we're using images, and how do you translate what is in here onto there, has been quite, it's also been a learning curve, because there's a lot of things I didn't know that I thought I didn't know. 15 years, 16 now, years in the industry, I was like, I know everything there is to know. And, and when you get behind the camera, you discover a whole other world. And so for me, it's been a learning curve, and also shooting my first indie short film, a huge responsibility, and something magical about it. I think I'm hooked. But I still do want to act, and I still want to perform, and I still want to be in front of the camera. But I feel like I found a different voice, or a different way to look at the world, besides just from an actor's perspective. And I like it. Maybe a little too much. I like it. I really do. I really like it. Of course, it's also different from writing. And I was talking to my partner. I was like, yeah, I hear people saying like if a film is done 3 times, or you shoot a film 3 times, or you create a film 3 times. You write it, you shoot it, and you edit it. And I I've always been in front of the camera, and I've always performed, and I get to go home. I think only about the performance, only about the character, only about the story, and nothing else. Not how it's presented, not how it's narrated. Not I don't think about the music. I don't think about how the camera moves. That's someone else's responsibility. My job is to portray and be honest with the character. And now it's a brave new world. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you seem to be embracing the journey and the process. And, it's nice to be able to have, a hat and all these different rings, for example, because it also makes you think, I'm sure, as an actor, like from a different perspective. Now that you're behind the camera more, you can kind of not like you haven't appreciated before, but like you mentioned, it's something completely new. You're opening your eyes to all these different perspectives and opinions you might have not thought about previously. We will
Mm.
get into One Piece now on Netflix. And I will note to all those watching that we are discussing spoilers, so please make sure you have finished season two before continuing this interview. What can you share about your audition process and what drew you to wanting to be a part of this world, having been a fan of the anime previously?
Yeah, yeah. Wow, what a dream come true, man. So I got into anime in varsity. I hated what I was studying. I loved the history part of it and the philosophy. I love that, but I hated public administration. I'm sorry to all the public administrators out there. So sorry. I hate public administration. Um, and so I was studying, and a friend of mine introduced me to anime. And I think the first one I watched, besides Dragon Ball Z, Speed Racer, and all the other ones that were popular, Pokemon, and all of that other stuff, it was Claymore and One Piece. And I was like, this is cool. I didn't know about this. He was like, bro, you don't know anything. So I started watching anime. Fast forward to many, many years later, I'm sitting at home watching Netflix, and I'm like, One Piece live action. I was like, wait, what? So I didn't hear anything about it prior to that because I think I don't know what happened. I didn't hear anything. There was not much publicity about it. And I see it. I'm like, what? They made a live action about this? And my wife's friend, Karen, is a huge fan. He's a huge One Piece fan at the time. And I'm like, damn, yo, do you see that they made a live action about One Piece? She's like, yeah, I saw it. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna watch it. So I binge watched the first season. And Mihawk, Steven, quick rewind. So Steven and I got onto the same talent show that I was telling you about, where I got the ticket. My brother took me there. We were on the same show. We made it into the top 10. I think we made it all the way to like the top 6 or 7. So, and we were roommates. So I see Steve. I was like, what? So I call my wife. I'm like, baby, Steven. And my wife's like, yeah, what's going on? What are you watching? I'm watching One Piece, and Steven is Mihawk. Steven is Mihawk. I was like, where did you relocate? Did he go somewhere? And my wife's from Cape Town. So we're watching. I'm like, maybe he relocated. My wife, I don't know. I think she saw a scene and she was like, that's Cape Town. I was like, no, you can't just see a mountain and think it's Cape Town. It's not. It's like, I'm telling you, that looks like Cape Town. And so I call my agent and I ask her, show them? Where's this thing being shot? Well, I saw Steven and I thought it says, yeah, it was shot in Cape Town. I was like, why didn't I audition for it? And she was like, well, I didn't know you were into that kind of stuff. I was like, what kind of stuff are you talking about? Of course I'm into anime. Yes, I want. She was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, I'm sorry. I'm like, there'll be a second season. And she goes, I don't know. I said, hey, listen to me. I'm telling you, there'll be a second season. When the second season comes around, please, please, please. Like, I don't care. I don't care how. You get me to put something down on tape, and you'll see it. If there's auditions, I'll audition for whatever character they bring. And a few months or so later, the script comes through. It's got a code name. I have no idea what it was. I don't remember what it was. Um, I'm there. I read it, and I'm like, wait, I think I know what this is. And again, I call my wife. I say, baby, I think I know what this is. She's like, what? I was like, I think this is one. I think this is One Piece. She's like, nah. Because the agent know on the shoulder, the shoulder's like, look, I don't know. Just do the audition. Okay. I'm like, okay, cool. So I go back and I like search the episodes because I think it was a scene. where Igaram introduced, but it wasn't Igaram on the script. It was he was using another name. He was introducing himself to the Straw Hats, and it was a different scenario. But I was like, this dialogue, I know this dialogue. I know I've seen this somewhere. And so there I go, and I'm like, okay, cool. I need to go and find all the episodes of One Piece and go through them one by one. I'm like, okay, cool. If they're starting here, this is where they're gonna go. They have to go to Whisky Peak. They have to go there. And it's Agar. And no, it's Agar. And so at the time, serendipitously, I was learning how to play the saxophone for a different role that I was playing. And I was learning how to play. I was horrible. But I bought myself like an old beat up saxophone, and I was like, oh yes, I've got an alto saxophone that I can play, and I can incorporate it into the theme. But the scene didn't have a saxophone. But I was like, because I know who it is, and hopefully, if Oda Sensei is watching this, he's gonna be like, oh, he knows what it is, and I was like, maybe that could give me some points. And so I'm like, I'm gonna incorporate that. And so I did the scene. I did it without the saxophone, and I did another take with the saxophone. And I like the one with the saxophone. Like, I send that one and send it to Nashoda. And Nashoda's like, what's with the saxophone? I was like, don't worry about it. Just send it. And I sent it, didn't hear from them for a very long time. And then they came back and they're like, okay, cool, you got the job. And the was like, hey, you got the job, and now I can tell you what it is. It is One Piece. I was like, yes, I knew it was One Piece. Fast forward to me going for the makeup tests and all of that. So I don't know if other actors feel this. There's a lot of imposter syndrome. I felt like, I think even after the audition, I felt a lot of fear. I'd never felt fear before. Yes, nervous and anxious about, whatever, but I've never really felt scared. Um, After I sent the audition tape, I was like, if I get rejected here, what does that mean? What does that mean for me? Like, this is a big deal for me. If I get rejected here, that's gonna be a big loss to me. I had a little bit of an existential crisis. But anyway, so I go to a makeup test and I'm there, imposter syndrome. I'm like, someone's gonna walk up to me and say, "Oh no, no, you're not the guy we're looking for." And one of the ADs, Jess, who I'd worked with before, says to me, "Do you want to go see the set?" And it was Logtown, and I was like, "Yeah, am I allowed to do that?" She was like, "Yeah, come see it." And it's so ironic. It's the town of beginnings and endings. So I walk on there and I look around, and I mean, these big, big practical sets. Never been on such big sets before. I've been in studios and studio shooting and shooting on location, but never like a set of that scale. So I walk in, and to me, it seems monumental. Like, she's like, I think it was an interview with Russell Crowe when he did Robin Hood, where he was like, they shot at a castle somewhere, and he said, um, "This is probably the last time we'll ever be in a place like this, where it's a practical, real castle. And it's not green screen. And so I had one of those moments where I walked in and I was like, wow, this is awesome. And everything that's here is meant to be here, including myself." And that was a big moment for me where I was like, there's nothing here that's out of place. There's nothing here that's not supposed to be here that we have to work around. And everything that's here is supposed to be here. And that was a big moment. And quickly got over my imposter syndrome. And I was like, I'm here. And I need to do a great job. And so, yeah, big deal from the get go. And it's been a dream.
Well, I'm so glad that you got to be a part of the show that you were a fan of, and you got to bring in that saxophone playing, which we'll talk about in just a bit. But it's so nice to have that joy and curiosity about a project and to feel like you belong, just a little bit of that validation. Can you expand on the research and preparation you did going into filming? And what specific elements did you draw, from the anime, rewatch, and the source material to inform your performance as Igaram?
Yeah. So Igaram was a tough one. I don't think I've done anything like Igaram before. I haven't. No, I haven't. And most of the stuff that I've done is very dramatic, very like melodrama and very grounded. And so the world of One Piece is like almost like there's very fantastical element to it, and sometimes very whimsical, if I can, if in lack of a better word. And so, especially Igram's character, like with the guns coming out of his hair with this big wig, and so for me, embodying that, I didn't know where I'll specifically draw from that or what the base for the character would be for that. Because usually when I do some of the work, I'll look at maybe people in real life or actors who played certain characters before in different movies, and I'll be like, oh, so I wonder this is how he feels. Um, so going into Igaram, I was like knowing how the fans, how the fans get when it's material that's already beloved and that's already out there. I didn't want to stray too far from the original imagination of what Igaram or who Igaram was, and also respect to Oda Sensei's work. And I didn't want to change too much or like just go crazy creatively with what I'd like to do with him. So very, very early, Joseph and I started talking uh, about what they're looking for, and in that, look, we're not trying to do an imitation. It's a reimagining of all these characters, but also paying respect to the original. And immediately, the one thing that I wanted to find out about was the Mama Ma. I was like, so are you guys keeping that or are you removing it completely? And it was like, look, I don't know. I think we might do away with it. I don't think we might include that. And I was like, please include it. Please. I needed to be there because for me, when I watched the anime again, doing the research, I was like, it's such a iconic thing for him. And because I'd only watched that, I think that episode, I think 60 or something. I watched that such a long time ago, but when I watched it again, and you hear him, and I was like, "Bro, I remember that." And so I spoke to Joseph, and I was like, "Look, man, I really, really want him to keep that." And I'd really like him to have that. So if you can talk to the powers that be and ask them if I can have that. And so he was like, can you sing? Can you do that? And I was like, no, I can't sing, but I'll try it out. And I spent a lot of time preparing. I had a coach before going into One Piece. I had a coach, saxophonist who was teaching me how to play. And so I started leaning into that because when I read the script, there was a big musical part in the beginning where Igaram is playing with the band. And I said, oh, okay, I need to get ready for that. And in the anime, he plays an alto saxophone. So a lot of stuff that I was doing was more of the physical stuff. Um, Knowing who he is, that he's the captain of the royal guard, so he carries himself a certain way. My dad is in the military, and he spent his whole life in the military, and there's a way that he carries himself. There's a certain poise that he has. He doesn't slouch like I do ever. He's always got his back up straight. And so that kind of stuff. I was looking at my dad. I was like, yes, okay, cool. I have to be like the captain, the captain of the royal guard. And so I have to have a certain posture. I have to walk a certain way. I have to speak a certain. And so a lot of physical stuff I was working on, and I annoyed my wife no end with the mamamas that I was doing in the house. Like every I'll be sitting there watching something, and I'll just go, oh, 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 oh. I was like, how's that? How's that? And eventually she was like, who's one? And just be confident. And I was like, yeah, I'll choose that. I'll choose that. I'll be in the shower, in the kitchen. I'm like, that's all I was doing for because I was nervous. I was like, oh, it's such an iconic thing. And eventually I settled on one, which is not the same one as in the anime. I love that one, and I always try to like the respect I have for all the voiceover artists and all the people that do the character voices, the original people that do the character voices. But I'm like, I don't want to do like a cheap imitation of what they did. But I also like to pay homage to what the work they've done and bringing that to life and whatever decision or whoever's decision it was to do the Mama Ma, I was like, I want to pay homage to that. I want to do that right, but I don't want to create like some, I don't know, like a poor imitation of the great work that they've done. Um, because I'm giving it breath and I'm giving it texture and I'm doing this, not to try and imitate what they did, but to honor the work that they did and to give it respect. And so also, the fear of the fans. I was like, I have to do this right. If I don't do this right, because me being a fan, I'm like, if you don't get it right. So I was like, if I don't get it right, if I don't get it right, I'll hate myself for it. Um, so I spent a lot of time on that kind of stuff. And when I went in and I put on the wardrobe, and I think I spoke a little bit about this when the wig came out. The first wig was too small. Well, it was big, and they took a picture. The message came back. It needs to be bigger, and they're like, "Okay, cool." They made it a bit bigger, and their second wig came on, and they were like, "Nope, it's still big." And everyone was like, "What?" They're like, "Yeah, it's too small. Sorry, it's too small. It's still small." And everyone was like, "What? What do you mean it's small? This is as big as it gets." They're like, "No, we got to find a way to make it bigger." And so art department, prosthetics, and makeup all came together. They're like, "How do we create a wig big enough for everybody to be happy with?" And they had to eventually build a frame to create the wig and put the wig on top. Such a great team. And for me, that was the second big piece of Igaram. So first it was the music, the second one was the physicality, third one was the wig. And I say this to my friends as well, like when the wig came on, like I kind of had Igaram figured out, like a top layer, but when the wig came on, it just informed everything else. It informed how I walked, it informed, because I couldn't turn my head this. So I would have to like lean forward and turn my head at an angle. So that brought something else to him. And the way I walked, there's a weapon on your head. And the way he ran, the way he walked, and on all of that, there was I couldn't see. I had no peripheral vision, so I couldn't see anything besides what was immediately in front of me, and almost like a racehorse, that also informed like how he behaves, how he moves, how he thinks, how he interacts with the people around him and the world around him. He knows he has blind spots, and so he tries to keep everyone at a certain angle, a certain position. And so that was the kind of work that went into it in terms of the character, and also I was very nervous about meeting Charithra because I was like, I don't know how this is gonna work because are we just gonna show up on set and just generate this kind of like father daughter kind of relationship, you know but also, well, how are we gonna do this? Like, what's gonna happen? I don't know how that's gonna happen. Are we gonna do rehearsals together? And the schedules were because she was already shooting when I was coming in, and luckily Steven was like, "Yo, dude, I'm gonna go do like to like some wine farms because there's a lot of beautiful wine farms in Cape Town." It's like, "I'm gonna go to some wine farms. You wanna come along? I'm inviting some of the cast members." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, come along." And Charithra came along, and her dad was there. And so I got to watch them interacting together. And I mean, like, Igaram is not dad, is not Vivi's dad, but feel like there is that kind of relationship that is there that, he's watched her grow up and possibly trained her. He's always been there for her. So I was like, there is a bond there, like a daughter father bond that's there. I was like, I don't think it's something that you can just generate on the day on set. And so it was such a boon for me to see her and her father interacting and just having to watch that and gather whatever I could from that, and us having conversations and trading stories about our backgrounds, where we're from, what characters would like to play and which films would like to be in, and talk about films and all of that kind of stuff. And there was kind of a familiarity that developed from that. So when we got on set, it wasn't so hard to manufacture that because it was already there. Uh, so yeah, I hope I'm answering your question. So that, for me, that was mostly the preparation. Besides all the so one time my wife comes to visit me in Cape Town, and I'm in the hotel room, just in my head thinking about the scenes the next day. So Igaram wears a cape in the flashback scenes. And I was like, I've never had a cape on before. How do you walk with a cape? How do you behave? What do you do? How do you? Because I'd already done the costume fitting. It's some weird small things that stress me out. I was like, I feel like it's something that I've never worn before. I don't want it to seem like I've never worn it before. And so in the hotel room, I took the curtain. I was playing around with the curtain, just swinging it around. Like, I think maybe if I do this, that will work. If I move this way, that will work. And my again just looking at me like, it's just a cape. It's just a piece of clothing. He's put it on his whole life. He probably that's what he does every day. It's almost like a part of him. I was like, exactly. That's what it is. So a lot of things I was picking up from the wardrobe, from makeup, and prompts. And trying to put them together, watching the anime, of course, and being like, okay, cool. This is how he holds his hand. This is how he kind of speaks. This is how he moves. So yeah, that was it.
How heavy was the wig and headpiece, the final version that you had to wear in the show?
The one with the guns, that was heavy. That was very heavy. And the one before that without the guns, at first it wasn't heavy, but then he, you have it on for like maybe 4 hours. And because I couldn't take it on and off, it had to be on the whole time. They would put it on in the morning before I go to shoot, and then they would pin it onto my head. And by the end of the day, my neck would be like, it felt like I was doing neck exercises the whole day. Um, but which also helped that the gun weight was very heavy and it had cable like that looked like an umbilical cord that got attached to a box so that there was lights that came on. Oh, it was beautiful. It was beautiful but heavy. That the lights would come on as if there were muzzle flares from the guns, which helped me so much. I was geeking out over that. But it was so heavy, and I remember sitting there. I'd have to sit down a lot and just shrug my shoulders to just kind of take the weight off and put it on my shoulders. And I remember sitting there in the bakery after shooting with Iñaki, and I was like, this wig actually helps. Like the weight of the wig actually helps. It just is like a constant reminder of of the weight Igaram carries and the constant danger he must have always been in. I think infiltrating Aroop works, Princess V being there back home, the responsibility that they have, and I'm not saying anything, but yeah, about what happens in Alabasta. So about the weight that they carry, both of them, uh, and and the danger that they constantly in. And so I kind of appreciated the weight a little bit at times where I had to feel the weight of what was going on, especially when I had to have Igram more grounded, when he was not performing or acting for the Straw Hats as if he's the entertainment for the night. When he had to be the captain of the Royal Guard and he had to protect his charge, you know, even in his final moments, it's something that helped where I just felt the weight of the wig, which gave me, I think it gave me something to ground myself with in those moments, and especially when the guns come out and you have to do the action as if there's a recoil, but also stay in it and not um fall into the fantasy and the fantastical, almost goofy type of environment that whole thing creates. Uh, it helped a lot. Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about that saxophone playing experience. You mentioned you were kind of learning it for another role, but as Igaram, you really had to learn how to play and move like he would. So, how was that learning curve for you, and who did you work with?
Some of the toughest, toughest, maybe the toughest thing I've ever had to do. So much respect for people that. So alto sax, small little saxophone. It's easy to carry. It, I was like, I'm comfortable with this, and it's great. And Tony, who was my coach on 1P, says to me, "Well, you're gonna be playing the baritone." I was like, "What? What do you mean I'm gonna be playing the baritone? I don't know how to do that." And I was like, we're just gonna pretend, right? It's just gonna be one of those things where we just. She was like, "No, you have to learn how to play." And for me, the toughest thing about the saxophone, when I even started learning, is that you have to make the sound, right? You don't press a button and it makes a sound for you, or you don't press a key and it makes the key sound. You have to develop an embouchure in your mouth and the muscles around your face. It's a whole thing. And I was like, because if you press too hard on the neck or the reed, it squeaks and it doesn't make the sound you want it to make. So there's a lot of technique. And so I spent a lot of time with just like sometimes pencils in my mouth and things just to start working those muscles around the face. That was very tough. That was incredibly tough. I can't tell you how tough that was. And then I had to get used to holding this huge saxophone. And you still have to perform. And I have to learn this key for key. And then they go off and they get like maybe one of the greatest saxophonists that you could ever find, which is Leo P, to make a song. So at this point of me learning how to play the instrument, I'm doing long notes. So it's like G for 10 seconds, and I do another one, F for 10 seconds. I have no the skill of having to play and like the quarter notes and all of that. I'm far from that. So they were like, "Well, you're gonna have to skip a whole lot of lessons." And it's like you're going from not walking to sprinting in the Olympics. And so a lot of work went into it. And not only that, but I also had to learn how to dance with it. And so I can't tell you how much was going on and how much pressure I felt from that. But everyone that I was working with, they were great and they were wonderful and they were just so patient. It was so, so bad. And but everyone was so patient with me and they were so wonderful and they were so encouraging. And at some point, I had to do it like I was like, teach it to me like you're teaching a 5-year-old because I can't read music. So you can't send me a sheet of music and be like practice these notes. I don't know what I'm looking at. Um, I'm gonna need videos. I'm gonna need you to even and I can't hear it, right? If you're playing a G or an F, I have no idea. I can't hear it. It's so quick. I can't. So do it to me, like teach me like you teach a 5-year-old. And I remember getting a video, and it was going pa 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 ta 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 ta. So those are the sounds. It's not even music. It's just baby talk, right? Pa 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 pa, and that was what we're doing. Tu ta 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 ta, and that's how I learned how to play. So I learned how the fingers move, and we started off very slow. So I'll play it like a very slow version of the song, and we'd increase it incrementally, by maybe like, like you play it at -1, you play it at -5, and so on 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 until we got to like the full version of it. And even when we did get there, making the sound was such a tough thing to do, and dancing and moving. And I remember I was playing in the house with it and was trying to move and trying to sing around with it. And I cut my lip and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do there. And all this pressure was on me. I was like, I am going to ruin it. This is gonna be bad. I'm gonna ruin this. And and Tony was just like, don't, don't panic. We're all gonna be there. It's all gonna be great. It's all gonna be wonderful. And eventually, luckily, when we had to do it, we had playback because they were like, no, no, no. I mean, you don't have to worry about that. I was like, what do you mean I don't have to worry about actually playing the song? I spent months preparing for this. What do you mean I don't have to play? They're like, nah, it's just easier and we'll get through it quicker. But please, the fingers have to move to the notes still. But you don't have to worry. I cut my lip. I played for this. But we eventually did it that way, and there was less pressure on me, but it was incredible. And also Leo P. I mean, the stuff that he does with saxophone and the sounds he makes with it, how he moves with it, it's just incredible. But man, I don't think I'll ever be able to do that. I'll do my best though. And yeah, I think we did a decent job. I think we did a pretty decent job.
Well, you got through it, and I'm glad that everyone got to a place where, you felt confident enough to at least do the notes correctly and
Yeah.
comfortable, and the end product looks really nice. Naturally, when you play a character, there's thought given to one's past. Did you consider Igaram's background as captain of the Alabasta Royal Guard and what his life looked like prior to going undercover with Baroque works as Mr. Eight?
Yeah, I did think about that a lot, and what would that mean, and what would that look like for him, especially for him, in relation to Vivi, and what their lives would have looked like before coming over um to trying to infiltrate Baroque works, and what kind of relationship that might have looked like. I mean, Igram has a wife, back in Alabasta, Anakota, and for me, he always felt like a father figure to Vivi, and possibly maybe his greatest work, or maybe his life's work was taking care of her. Um, Besides him being the captain of the Royal Guard, my main thing was like, I wonder what kind of a man is he outside of his work, and when he's not working, when he's with his wife, and when in those quiet moments, maybe with Vivi, where he's just being himself. He doesn't have to put up guns in front of the king. So I thought a lot about that, and a lot of backstory into what I thought it would have been. And also they give us a lot of like stuff to look at, like material to look at, and looking for the characters and what the characters are and what they would be, or what the plan was for the characters. And for me, the most revealing things were the moments that Igaram spent with other people. Because in the character, there's always like, the side that is known to self, unknown to others, and known to others, unknown to self, and known to either. And so for me, I was like, I want to know how other characters view him. I want to know how Vivi's father views him. I want to know how Vivi views him. What do they think of him? What kind of a person do they think he is? And so a lot of it was there. Um, uh, and I think it helped out a lot to to go into that and really focus on other characters' perspectives of who Igaram is. And so for me, I think a little bit of what I picked up on is that he, beyond him being a captain of the royal guard, he is a citizen of Alabasta. He's in every. I'm not saying this is not canon. This is not what it is. Like I always imagined Igaram, if he was not a captain, he'd be a musician, right? He'd be a musician, or if not a musician, a farmer. And so for me, Igaram at heart is just, you know, a man dedicated to his work and specifically to Vivi. I think that's his life's work, and someone who really has a deep love for music.
He's someone with such a strong sense of duty, and I'm sure I won't get too far deep into it, but it's also interesting to think about his relationship with the king as well, right? And how that developed, and his
Mm.
obviously close relationship with Vivi. What do you remember from filming in the Whiskey Peak sets and how it was brought to life? Specifically, the sets you spent time at, which was the overall town, the streets, the saloon, and the bakery.
That was beautiful. I remember driving down to that set for the first time, and I was like, "Oh, look, there's a little town here, and there are horses running around." I was like, "Oh, look, there's a little town. This would be a great set." And the driver was like, "Yeah, that is where we're going." I was like, "You're kidding." I was like, "Yeah, that's where we're going." I was like, "And the horses are the horses like Whiskey Peak horses?" They're like, "No, no, it's just like wild horses that just are here." I was like, "What? What's this is like horses running around?" I was like, "Yeah, but you can't get close to the horses. Don't go anywhere near the horses." I was like, "Oh, okay." No, I'm not going anywhere near the horses. So first time seeing the place, I was like, it's phenomenal. Like there is, you don't see enough of it. There is a shop, real quick. There is a shop where they just sell legs and limbs, like prosthetic legs and limbs for pirates that have lost their legs and limbs. And it is fully kitted out. There's prosthetic legs, peg legs, limbs, eye patches, and we never get to see some of that stuff. And I was like, oh man, I wish like they could be like we could do something where everyone can see the amount of work that our department put into it, and the set designers and the people that build the set, even the bakery. Like there's pies, there's everything. Like if we decided as a director that today I want to shoot in that, can we shoot into that? Yes, you can. It's ready. It's there. It's fully kitted out. It's ready for you to shoot in. And so for me, the experience there was like, I don't have to pretend. I don't have to use the magic what if. This was a town. Indeed. It, I was like, this is a town. It is a town. And yeah, the explosion at the end, also another great moment for me. I was like, are you guys really going to blow up stuff? They're like, yeah, we're going to blow up. We're going to blow. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So great for me. I really love the texture they brought to it. I really love the realism that they brought to it. That it was an actual town. It was functional. You could walk into the spaces except for the saloon. I think the saloon. The entrance was kitted out, but the rest of it was somewhere else. But most of it, Whiskey Peak was you could walk down the corridors, you could or the side paths. So, it was for me that was incredible. It was a world that I didn't have to imagine in my head, but something that was tangible, that was there, something I could react to, something I could look to. And, all the other players that were there on the day, the background artists who were there on the day, they just fit right in. It felt like a town.
Practical sets can make all the difference with your experience. And like you mentioned, you didn't really have to pretend when it was right there for you. Now, as Mr. 8, Igaram has to act as an assassin and indirectly is responsible for many pirates' deaths, even if he wasn't the executioner. Do you think this also weighed on his conscience the longer he spent undercover with Baroque works?
Um, as a Yes, I think it did. There's a story my father told me about his time in the army, and he had to go into exile for a long time because of the situation in the country at the time, and they had to change their names and they had to go by different names. And a lot of people lost their lives, and some of them didn't come back. And he would, like, he told me this story, and then he had a moment where he was like, and now when I think back, I didn't even know the names, like their real names, like, because we all used like code names and different names. Like, I never really. And he was talking about a specific person who became his best friend. He's like, didn't even know his name. And so going into it, I was like, Igaram is a soldier. He's used to battle. He's seen maybe a lot of battles in his time, and he's lost a lot of people in his time. But for me, that's where I drew from. Where it's like, even if you don't know the people, even if these are not necessarily people that you would befriend, even if you are undercover and this is like a clandestine, like, den of assassins. That's another person standing across from me. And so I do feel that he felt the weight of it. And I mean, Zoro took out a lot of those people. And I don't think Ikram takes us very lightly. Even though he's a hardened warrior, I don't think he took that lightly. And I think for him that did weigh on his conscience, and maybe something that he also wanted to protect people.
I really appreciate you sharing all of that. And it's something that's so difficult to think about because at the back of his mind, it's always like the country in Alabasta. But all of this is kind of like collateral damage at that point. You mentioned working closely opposite Charithra Chandran as Princess Vivi, Miss Wednesday. I watched an interview where she talked about the bond that she created with both you and your wife, and a lovely voice note that you left her when she was having a tough day. So once you got to meet for that first time and got to kind of get to know one another through your scenes and maybe when the cameras were not rolling, like what can you say about that relationship that you share today and watching her step into this key role in the series?
Cece is she is so strong and such a resilient person. I mean, look, she was having, without going into detail, but she was having a very tough day and set. And I think naturally, I started going on about myself. It mentioned something, and I just started going on about myself and how nervous I was when the reveal happens. Oh my God, what will the fans think? What will they say? Will they accept me? And on my drive home, I thought about the conversation with her. I was like, oh wow, she's actually having a tough time. And so I sent her a voice note to try and encourage her, almost like, like, keep your chin up. it's gonna work out. For me, um, she's such a wonderful person in such an incredible form, such an incredible actor. And and I found myself, especially in that moment where I was like, I was afraid for my own things, but then looking at her and how poised she was in the face of it all, and how strong she was, and she showed up to work, and she was professional. I was like, wow, she's incredible. Because I don't know if I would have been able to show up to work and continue working if I was in a position. But me in my big age, 40, um, I'm looking at her going, wow, I'm learning something from her, not even from a performance perspective, but as from a human, from a professional standpoint. I'm learning something, I'm learning something, I'm learning something from her, about how you carry yourself in certain moments, and how you approach it, and how you metabolize all these things that are happening. And so for me, there's a lot. I've learned a lot from Charithra. I've learned so much. Not just by performing, but also as a person. She's incredible. Even on set, when we're not on camera, the conversations we had, and we spoke about politics a lot. We spoke about love for craft and stuff that we'd like to do, and so on. She's such an incredible person. She made it so easy for us to do those scenes and to really feel from a place, from a real place. So yeah, she's so incredible. I'm so fortunate and so lucky that I got a chance to work with her. And we didn't spend a lot of time together on set, but we did spend some time off set, with her and my wife, and we got to speak a lot, and we grew very close. Yeah, I think she's incredible.
I love the
And
chemistry that your characters share. Sorry, I cut you off.
yeah,
You can finish your
no, no,
thought.
I was gonna say, she did such an incredible job, playing Vivi. She did such a wonderful job, and it's such a strong performance. And in the world that is One Piece, live action, there's often a risk of, kind of taking everything like, oh, this is not real. This is like, in this world with pirates, and they have these powers, and there is a risk of not taking it serious, and not grounding it, and giving it, life, in the sense of these are human lives. But she brought a lot of that. I mean, watching some of her performance, like, well, performances really, I was like, hey, there's a scene where I wasn't even there when they shot the scene. It's just like lights in her face that look like an explosion. The emotion she brought to it was just incredible. I think she did a great job.
Was that Igaram meeting his supposed
Yes.
end on the boat? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I could see that
Yeah, yeah,
emotion there. Tell
yeah.
me about like how did you kind of touched on this a bit earlier, but how did you interpret Igaram and Vivi's relationship and his protection of her? Like starting from when she was young, what does he see in her and her strength as a person?
Um, I think Igaram, for me, Igaram looks at Vivi, as a daughter, and I think very early on he noticed something very special with her, and that she would become a great leader for her people, and someone who would willingly sacrifice themselves for their country, for the love of their country, um, and someone that he would follow into, uh, a pit of vipers, and and then assassins. And so I think, as much as Agram is loyal to his country and to the king, Um, if he had to choose, I hope he never has to choose it. If he had to, he'd always choose Vivi. Um, and I think I've said this before. I think that Vivi is his life's work. He he, Vivi is Igaram's great adventure. Um, so he has no need for you know like this great journey. Vivi has been that journey for him, and um, there's something about mentoring someone, and you find the stuff that you're supposed to teach them is already there. And it's just about refining that. And I think Igaram and how he views Vivi from a very young age is that this is a person that's got greatness in them. They're not just another, princess. This is someone who could be who has greatness in them. And so he feels that responsibility that it is my responsibility to guide her towards that and to keep her alive until she reaches her full potential. And so if it needs be, this is the cause I will die for. If it comes down to it, whether it's me or her, it will always have to be me. That stems from Igaram's love for his people. That if one person had to go between him or Vivi, it'd always be him. He'd always gladly sacrifice himself to see Vivi reach her full potential. And I think that's the kind of belief he has in her, that there is greatness in her, and he will do whatever it takes to make sure that she reaches that potential.
It's so clear the love that he has for her and the respect, and that starts from when she was young. Did you draw from your own fatherhood at all with the relationship that they share?
Yeah, yeah, a little bit of that. You look at your children and you want nothing but the best for them, and you want them to be great at everything that they do, and you think they're great at everything that they do, and sometimes you see something and you're like, you know, you could be great. You're just homes, and also there is a level. There's nothing more selfless than you be a parent. For me, this was my opinion. To be a parent, you have to be selfless. It stops being about you the moment your children are born. That's it, and it becomes just about them and you helping them achieve whatever dreams they may have, and, and whatever they want. And so, as far as what I drew from as a parent is that, and also it helped me. Like, I mean, Igaram makes a big sacrifice at the end there, where I'm like, that's not a tough decision for him. I remember talking to Joseph. I was like, it's not a tough decision for him. He when you're a parent, you always like tragedy role play in your head. It's like, if it's me or my kid, it's gonna be me. And so I was like to Joseph, I don't want it to seem like when you showed it, I was like, I don't want it to feel like he's making a tough decision. I want it to feel like something that's destined. It's like this is what I this is why I came here. This is what I need to do. That's why I'm here. And so that's what I took from me being a parent, where I was like, it wouldn't be a hard decision. So I don't think Igaram has a tough time making a decision. I think he has a tough time entrusting the Vivi to other people, or giving his job to Luffy and Straw Hats. Like, please get her home safely. I think he has a harder time doing that than he does making the sacrifice.
Let's talk about, that trust and belief that he has to give to the Straw Hats. Like, can you expand on his perception of them, starting as another pirate crew arriving at Whisky Peak, and when that turns into that belief that they can help Vivi and their country?
Yeah, I think from the beginning he doesn't trust them. He's like, oh, this is another group of pirates. We have a lot of graves for them here. So I mean, from that as well, he's taken a lot of lives um and doing this. So I think from the beginning he's just like he's just another group of pirates, but um amongst them is Luffy, who has a very high bounty and he's very young. And I think immediately he's like he's dangerous. I'll have to be the one to take care of him. He's very dangerous. And when he hears that, um, he, they found Vivi and they came across Vivi, and Luffy's like, yeah, I think he says I saved them, and then they attacked us and jumped off the ship, and Igaram is like, you took them out of the whale. So this whole story for him, I think, is also the first part where he's like, okay, you didn't kill them, and you tried to help them, but then okay, the weird kind of pirates. And I think when he has a conversation with Luffy later on, he realized that maybe he's not that. Maybe he's not all the way bad, but he's still a pirate. And so I think there's a lot of doubt all the way up to that final moment where he stands there and he really looks at them. I think there's a lot of doubt in his mind, and but when Vivi shows up and she's standing and he looks at her, and there is almost an understanding that look, these guys are not all the way bad, but also as a father, I mean, I could trust you as much as I can trust you as much as I can throw you when it comes to my kids. As far as I can throw you when it comes to my kids, but I think it's still a tough thing for him, even though he believes that, hey, maybe you guys help, right? And the story that you're telling me is that you help people, but still, still don't trust you all the way. So it's still a tough decision for him to make. But also he has no choice but to believe what they're saying and to trust his gut and you know trust his judge of character. So a tough decision. For me, it was tough because also trying to play that he's injured, he's trying to comfort Vivi, he's trying to see if he can trust these people, and can I trust them as much as to give them my charge? Is there's all of that that's going on in him. There's like a turmoil, like a fight that he has before the final fight that he has to.
And for Igaram, he's running out of time. It's not like he has time to kind of sit on all of these thoughts. He has to kind of give that instruction and make that decision. But it's hard to trust people's intentions. Like he knows that everyone knows that all these characters are kind of sizing each other up. Take me through that final sequence when he does share that heartfelt goodbye with Vivi, chooses to sacrifice himself to help them make that escape. Like, what emotions and feelings were you focused on emulating, as you mentioned, kind of all of those overarching thoughts for him, including the pain from being impaled by a stick of wood?
Yeah. Um, for me, it's. I think the first thing is that he realizes. He's been for me. Igram is a very experienced combatant, right? So he realizes that this is not something you can just walk away from. It's going to take a lot of doing to walk away from this. And if I try to run with them and escape, we all will die because I'm not going to get far. And I think before everyone else, it's maybe Zoro realizes it too. Um, but I think Igaram knows immediately that I'm not walking away from this, and it's a matter of trying to get Vivi there as well, which is his second priority. And so for me, it's heartbreaking that I'm not going to be coming home. Um, but you have to go. And he tells her, you're the strongest person I know. To get her, it's almost like when you send your kid off to school for the first time and they terrify, and you know you can't go with them, and they'll be gone for 12 hours, and you can't go with them, oh, maybe not 12 hours. Yeah, I don't know. It's like 10 hours. But you know you can't go with them. And they terrify. And it's their first day at school. And you know what school is like. And so I think Igaram knows what the road ahead is like. And you're going with strangers. And I have to trust that I've prepared you for this moment, that I've prepared you and given you all the tools you need to do this. But it's still terrifying. And he can't show her that he is terrified. And he has to convince these people that he's handing his charge to that, I'm trusting you with this. I'm holding you to this. Even though I'm not going to make you, I'm holding you to it. That you will do and you will keep your word. And so there's like so much complexity in how he feels in that moment. And he has to do it quick. And they have to get out quick. And also I think a part of it was that Vivi cannot see this. So please take her away and make sure she doesn't see this. And so I think for me in that moment, it was about him taking care of her and making sure that she understands who she really is and that she's strong and that she can do it. And she doesn't need him to be there for her to be able to do what she needs to do.
That was such a beautiful moment. Like you mentioned, like it's such a fleeting moment, in the grand scheme of things, but it meant so much to have that kind of final thing where she does tell him like I can't do this without you. And he says you can, right? He has to trust that she will continue on their mission to save their country. And yeah, such a strong scene from all of you and you in particular as well. And then, we don't get to see him use his saxophone as a weapon like we do in the source material, but of course, the hidden guns in his hair, pulling the necktie. You mentioned them actually having flashing lights. So, how was it to film that ability, but then also see the final version with these special effects added in? And were you happy with how it turned out?
I'm so happy about how it turned out. I'm so happy about how it turned out because when you're there on the day, there's no sound. It's just you going mama, mama. And we tried a couple of versions with Joseph where I was like, he's got like an Igaram Papa. Like he's like that's like, can we do that? Can we try that? It's like, yeah, let's try it. And we tried a couple of versions of it. And for me, the wig helped and having the necktie helped. Because for me, those were the things where I was like, no, he pulls it a particular way. And he has to be a particular way. And think that Joseph was so generous and graceful. He was like, okay, okay, we'll try both. We'll see what works. Let's see if he does it like this and if he does it like that. And we tried a lot of different versions of it. And having the wig light up because I can't see it when it lights up. I can kind of see it because the light kind of hits my face, and and there's no sound. It's just you and this thing on your head. And it's moving like this because you have to move it and shake your head. And when you see it, when they do the playback and you see it, it looked so cool. I was like, this is before they put in like special effects, before they put in sound. This is just like raw footage. And I'm like, this already looks incredible. And going into the next few takes, I had more confidence now. Where I was like, oh, it looks great. I don't look stupid. I look great. I was like, it just was like, of course, man. I wouldn't let you look stupid. I won't make you look stupid. You're good. And we were like, okay, okay, okay. I was like, okay, cool, cool, cool. And then I'm doing it again with that much confidence. And it's just like, I think when everything works and all the elements work and you're there and you're not confident, it's very easy to go to look at the bag and go, are you happy with it? Yes, I'm happy with it. and trust that the makeup department, the prosthetics department, the special effects department are doing a great job. To know that also gives you so much confidence that this is gonna look great. I'm not gonna look silly doing this. This is gonna look great. And it came out wonderful. It came out beautiful. And for me as an actor, I'm just grateful that I could have all those tools and all those elements working perfectly. For me, I'm so happy about it.
You worked opposite Aroop Shergill, who I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, who plays young Vivi in episode
Ah,
6. How was that experience and finding a younger version of Igaram for those scenes?
she's so fantastic, and I hope she sees this. We played around like I feel she was incredible, great actor. So for her and I, it was a lot of like on set, a lot of playful moments. Also me as I have kids, so I'm like, uh, it mustn't feel like work because the moment it feels like work, it's no longer fun. Um, I always tell my wife, I'm like, I go to work to play with my friends. So when I go to work, I'm like, I'm gonna go play with my friends now, and I go to work. Yes, acting is a serious business, but for me, if you lose the playfulness, if you lose that imagination, for me, you've lost the essence of what it's supposed to be. It's an imagined reality where you get to play. And so we played a lot on set. I taught a couple of things to do, like, and a couple of phrases, like how to say hi. And there's a video, I hope I can find it, where I teach her how to click. Like, I was like, she was like, what? How do you do that? I was like, yeah, I'm gonna teach her how to click. And I teach her how to click. I tried teaching Charithra how to click. She's hopeless. Can't click to save her life. And so we had a lot of playful moments, and for me, also it helped with the performances because I was like, this is probably how Igaram is with Vivi when they're not at a at a royal gathering or where there's no some kind of protocol and etiquette that needs to be observed, and when it's just them in together where there's no one else around. It's very playful and maybe also her love for weaponry and fighting comes from that where she's like, I don't want to dance. I want to use weapons like Igor. I think maybe that's also where it comes from. And so a lot of playfulness and a lot of moments where we were just playing. It was
And
beautiful.
for the characters, like to build a bit of that context and history between them, there was that tense scene opposite Rob Colletti as King Wapol. How much anger did you feel in that scene as Igaram, that moment where he mocked and hit young Vivi?
Oh, that was let's see. So that was like I was like, who hits a child? It's like, who is this guy? So yeah, it was. I enjoyed it. In that I mean, Rob, what a great actor. He made it so aggravating. How he did it was so aggravating. He's like, the princess of Alabasta. It's like you will die. And there's a moment where we have to come together and really be in each other's faces. Uh, there's a lot of intensity in that because already established a bond with young Vivi, and so when that happened, I was like, oh man, oh oh, oh let's fight. Great intensity, great delivery because most of what I did there was just reacting to him and what he was doing, which helps a lot. Like I said, you got the right people in the right places with the right elements and it all comes together. You don't even need to act. You just react and respond to your environment, what's happening. People read. And so you trust that. So in that scene, I was like, he's doing all the heavy lifting, man. I'm just reacting to what he's doing. But yeah. it was a wonderful scene. And thanks to him.
Rob played that role so bratty and cruel, but I'm sure you were familiar with the character from the anime as well. And
Yeah, yeah.
speaking of the anime, the source material, the manga, we know that Igaram survives the explosion and returns to Alabasta. What are your thoughts on that source material arc in contrast with where we leave him in season two and his implied death? And would you be open to returning in a future season if it works creatively?
Yes, if it works creatively, for me, I'm happy to come back. And also, there's always a part of me where I go, um, I respect the source material, and I'm like, if there is a way we can pay homage to that, and we can recreate something that respects that. I'm very happy with it. And also, this is part of me as a writer where I go, I want to feel like these characters are in danger. Like when something happens, I want to feel like these characters are in danger. Like something will happen if you get close to an explosion, you might die. So there also is a part of me that wants that. And there's a part of me that wants to go back. There's this big part of me that I'm like, I want to go back. Yes, of course. Igaram survives in the anime. He's gonna survive. So for me, I'm always open to what the writers and the showrunners and the creators and of course Oda Sensei wants to do with it. And I respect that and I'll go with it. But I can see the value in both sides of it. If they decide to go with Igaram not returning, I understand where that is, and if he does return, I also get it. So for me, I think we'll wait and see.
It's one of those things where it's like you want his sacrifice to mean something, right? To have a bit of weight behind it. But as a fan, you're also like, I'd love to return and, play some
Yeah,
more and get to see these people again. You work
yeah.
closely with these Straw Hat actors in those scenes. You had some really good exchanges opposite Iñaki, Godoy as
Mhm,
Luffy. How
mhm.
were they to work with and witness the chemistry they've developed with each other and in their characters?
Look, I was pleasantly surprised. I've worked on some sets where, the people come to work and they go home. That's what they do. The Straw Hats really are like a family. I walked onto there and I felt like I was walking into like a group of friends or family even. And let me tell you, Iñaki he's young, but he's such a great leader. Walked onto the set the first time. It's the whole like my first day was the playing the saxophone, coming down and meeting them meeting them at the bottom. I think after they get to the saloon. So that was the first scene I play, and I go talk to them downstairs. Such a great leader. Such a wonderful person. He made me immediately feel welcomed, and he made the environment so easy to work in. He was incredible, and someone who I didn't like. I expected like Pez to be funny and Jacob and like to be like someone I didn't expect to be funny was McKay. I didn't, and he's so funny. He is so funny. So yeah, after I did the first scene with them, I said, Mama, he looks over to me and he goes, Mama. And I was like, yeah. I was like, Zoro just echoed my mama. Zoro just echoed and he nodded. And that was like a big fanboy moment for me. Yeah, he's such a funny dude. Really enjoyed working with all of them. Kiki is, oh man, he's incredible. I think he's got he's a great leader and a great lead. Makes everyone feel immediately comfortable on set. He's such a wonderful vibe.
It's so nice that you had that experience, and it really comes from the top down, they say, in terms of, creating a healthy collaborative environment on set. How was your experience working with your directors and creative team?
Oh, great. So 15 years in the industry, you almost feel like a teenager still. Look at peers and how long people have been in the industry. I'm like, I'm in my adolescence in terms of career. Um, I walked into a set of One Piece. I feel like everything, like I'll suggest something or I'll say something and it will immediately be accepted. Like, yeah, okay, let's see how that works. Let's talk about it. What do you think? Do you think that works? Like, those are the kind of conversations we're having. In a way, it's just like no one is there to tell you, just do what you're told. Okay. Where it's like, yo, what do you think? Yes, do you think that will work? Okay, cool, let's try it out. And so all the directors, even the showrunners, like, when we did the Mama Joseph came to me and he was like, okay, cool, we're gonna do it in this take, we're gonna do it in this take. And it was like, does everybody know? So like, no, no, we're just gonna do it, we're just gonna do it. And then I did it, and he came back. He was like, "Okay, cool. Let's go back to the original without the mama." I was like, "Oh no, they didn't like it." And then we did the third take, and then one of the showrunners, I think it was Max, he came up. He was like, what? Who's the mama? Why did you guys stop?" And I was like, "Oh yeah," just was like, "Oh yeah, you guys wanted it?" We're like, oh yeah, they wanted, yes, they love it." Okay, and then after that, it was it was it just did the mama the whole time. And so it was that kind of environment where, your suggestions are welcomed and everybody wants to hear you out. What do you want to bring? What do you want to hear? Of course, within the boundaries of what we were creating and respecting the writers and the and the creator. And so it was there. But if you brought something and you felt a kind of way about something, it was very acceptable, very welcome. But yeah, cool. Let's try it. Let's see what it does. So yeah.
And speaking of lovely One Piece fans, because there's support from all over the world, what messages and responses have you seen and received, and what does it mean to you to now be a part of this community?
For me, this is tantamount to a dream come true. This is like, honestly, this is something I never thought would ever happen. It's not something that it was not in my wildest dreams. It's not even my wildest dreams that I think that I'll be on a One Piece like that ever. It was not something that was in the cards for me to be a part of it. Every moment of me being on set and every moment that I was there with the Straw Hats, with everybody that I was working with was just such a surreal experience. To watch something, right? To watch something on television and to be, especially, I think also the time that it was introduced to me was such a, like, I was not happy with what I was doing. I was not happy with what I was studying, and it was such a huge part of my escape, something that I could go through and just feel like me. And now to be a part of that is such an incredible thing to have. And to the fans, yeah, the fans have been so incredible. They've been so, like, they've been so supportive and they've been so great. I think today I got like a message from someone who was like, dude, my son is such a huge One Piece fan. If you followed me, I'd be so cool. And it's like, as a father, I was like, okay, I'll make you cool. And I was like, I followed them. And that kind of response and that kind of love and knowing that if it's things as simple as following someone will make them seem cool to their kids is absolutely wonderful. And my niece was like, she's put out send me a video. She was like, my uncle is in One Piece. Yes, we're related by blood. I was like, I'm the cool uncle, the cool uncle. So it's added so much value into my life, and it's created so much joy and happiness. It's been nothing but a wonderful. This is my One Piece. You know, for me, this is this kind of work. This is my One Piece.
And it's such a inclusive and dynamic community as well. I'm so glad you're receiving praise for your work and getting to see all the response from fans now that the show is out. As we round things out here, do you have any upcoming projects you can share, including news about the release for that short film as part of New Vessels?
With the film, we're preparing it for next year. We want to put it in the Joburg Film Festival, and hopefully, they accept it in there. Sometime next year, you will probably see the film. And there is another project that I'm currently working on that you guys will see very soon, probably early next year. And I hope you guys enjoy it. I can't say much about that, fortunately, but there is something that's coming. I think I can say it's on Netflix. I think I'll get myself in trouble here. Yeah, it will also be on Netflix.
That's exciting. And I know that prior to One Piece, though, you were not new to the Netflix family. So it's nice to kind of stay involved and feel the love there. I have one more question for you, our signature question. If you could be any ice cream flavor, which would you be and why?
Is it Jamaican coffee? I think it is. It's a coffee flavor. I think it's Jamaican coffee. I think so. I think it's Jamaican coffee. Coffee. Let's just say coffee. I'm a coffee flavor. It's not chocolate. It's not vanilla, but it is. I think it's unique in that way. That it's not something that it's not a sweet. It's coffee, but it is sweet. More like me, I think.
I like that answer. I don't think I've ever had a Jamaican coffee answer before. It is unique. And so you're a big coffee drinker as well?
I enjoy coffee. Yes, I really do enjoy coffee.
Sometimes you need it, especially for long days on set. So I understand.
Always.
But Yonda, it's been such a pleasure getting to speak with you about your work in One Piece and outside on the filmmaking world. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm sorry for all the technical difficulties, but thank you so
It's
much for
okay. We
having me.
don't need to mention that here, but it was so nice, yeah, to get to speak with you. I hope we get to catch up in the future. But until then, for all those watching, make sure to catch Yonda as Igaram or Mr. 8 in One Piece Season 2, which is out now on Netflix. Stay tuned for new projects from him and from New Vessels Productions. We'll leave their socials below so you can stay updated with new news on that front. And we will see you next time.
Cheers.